One person I believe in Hollywood who people conspired to actually take down because he had too much power, and I believe that person was Michael Jackson. The reason I believe that is because you can look into the story. Paul McCartney and Michael used to be real cool. Paul was telling Michael, like, yo, you got to get your business together, you got to get your business right. Michael ended up getting so big that he bought the Beatles publishing. The Beatles publishing was worth so much that literally Sony gave Michael Jackson half of their publishing company just to own the Beatles catalog. Imagine how powerful a black man is when he owns a majority of the music industry's publishing. In some cases, was even giving publishing back to some of the artists. He gave Little Richard his publishing back. I don't know how many people he did that to, but he gave Little Richard his publishing back. I believe that Michael Jackson had too much power in the music industry, had too much control over the most valuable asset in music, which is people's publishing, and I believe they had to take him out because of it.
Y'all, it looks like Janet Jackson, Miss Jackson, if you're nasty, just lit the entire industry on fire with something nobody saw coming. Reports claim she's calling out Jay-Z directly, saying he wasn't just competing with her brother Michael, he was plotting against him. According to Janet, this wasn't some small rivalry. She's hinting that Jay allegedly set Michael up moving pieces behind the scenes to block him at every turn. Yeah, y'all, talk about control. And now fans are saying this could explain all those strange moves, backroom deals, and sudden power shifts that left Michael isolated at the very height of his career. The whispers are turning into a storm, and Janet's timing makes it even more explosive. Because if what she's saying is true, her claims could mark the beginning of the end for Jay-Z's long reign as the so-called King of Hollywood. Let's break this down. You know the saying, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. We miss Michael Jackson every day, but Janet just cracked open a story that might change the way fans look at his death forever. She's not buying the official story, not one bit, and she's making it clear that the media wasn't the only force targeting her brother. According to Janet, the chain of events that led to Michael's passing was full of gaps, contradictions, and shady connections that point to something much bigger. And at the center of it all, she's hinting at Jay-Z and his longtime ally, Diddy. Yeah, Diddy, because when there's industry drama, somehow he's always in the mix. Now let's rewind a bit. Michael Jackson passed away on June 25, 2009, after overdosing on propofol. May he rest in peace. That drug was illegally administered by his personal doctor, Conrad Murray. But here's where things start to look suspicious. When Michael collapsed, Murray didn't immediately call 911. Instead, reports claim he called a man named Fahim Muhammad. And here's the wild part, Fahim wasn't a doctor. He wasn't even medical staff. He was Diddy's bodyguard. For years, insiders have whispered that Fahim wasn't just security. He was the guy you called when something in the industry needed to be cleaned up. So, the fact that he was allegedly the first person called instead of an ambulance, that's left fans wondering what really went down in Michael's final moments. But why would Jay-Z and Diddy even want Michael Jackson out of the way? Well, according to Janet, it all came down to money and power. At that point, Michael wasn't just the king of pop, he was the king of Hollywood. Nobody could touch him. Maybe Prince came close, but Jay-Z? He wasn't even in the same league. But here's the part everyone forgets. Michael wasn't just an artist, he was a businessman doing business, man. He owned assets that shook the entire music industry. He was the biggest sole owner of the Sony ATV publishing catalog, worth around $250 million back then. And that catalog didn't just bring him money, it gave him leverage over the industry's biggest names. Producer Rodney Jerkins, aka Darkchild, once revealed that Michael confided in him, and saying he lived in constant fear because of that catalog.
Like, they be like, oh, Bill Cosby was trying to buy NBC.
Yeah.
Michael's the only person I believe they really tried to railroad like that because of what he did with the publishing in the music industry.
He talked about it all the time. He talked about it all the time. One thing I will say is that in the studio, he would always talk about how he lived in a certain fear. And I used to always try to reel him in a direction like, yo, you only supposed to fear God. Man shouldn't have you feeling like that. No man should have you living in that space. But he lived in that space a lot because he felt like he had something that was so valuable, which he did. He had something so valuable that people wanted.
He owned like half of Sony ATV's publishing, right?
Yeah, I think what people have confused, I'm glad you said that way, because I think people have confused the narrative. People for so long have said, Michael owned the Beatles catalog.
I heard that.
No, Michael owned Sony ATV.
That's right.
Which is Babyface, Mariah, the Beatles,
Beyonce.
probably some of my catalog was in there.
Now, Michael knew that everyone around him wanted what he had, and that paranoia. It wasn't paranoia at all. It was reality. And according to Janet, that catalog was exactly what made him a target. When Darkchild was pressed about whether the cases against Michael were connected to his power in the industry, he didn't dodge the question. He hinted that this was exactly what was happening. According to him, the accusations weren't random scandals, they were part of a much bigger plan. Allegedly, the media's obsession with painting Michael as a predator came from the higher-ups pulling strings behind the scenes. Darkchild made it clear that none of it added up. He called it crazy that Michael was being accused at all, and he spoke with conviction when he said he never believed a word of it. Why? Because he was there. He was around Michael constantly. He saw how he lived, who he surrounded himself with. He saw the man in the mirror for who he truly was. And from his perspective, those accusations didn't look like justice, they looked like a weapon.
Want it back.
You think they threw all those cases at Michael because they wanted it back?
I think it could have had something to do with it. I'm not going to say exactly that, but it could have had something to do with it. But I believe none of it because I was around Mike all the time and I knew the kind of person he was. So I'm like, they really trying to kill his character.
Yeah, I don't believe
And
it.
he would say it, like, he'd be like, they just can't stand that I'm the greatest. He would literally say that.
Darkchild 999 spent years defending Michael Jackson because he knew the truth about him. He wasn't just speaking out of loyalty, he was surrounded by people who trusted Michael and believed in him. So when he stood up for Michael, he knew he was standing alone. But this is where things start to take a strange turn. Around that same time, Rodney Darkchild Jerkins recalled that Michael was trying to stay positive, planning major events like Summer Jam to lift his spirits. But according to insiders, everything changed after he teamed up with Jay-Z for that 2001 Summer Jam performance. That moment wasn't just another collaboration, it allegedly marked the beginning of Jay-Z weaving himself deeper into Michael's world. Some even claim Jay-Z's connection to Michael went back even further, all the way to 1993, when he allegedly began infiltrating MJ's circle with help from LaToya Jackson's ex-husband, Jack Gordon. From that point on, Michael's inner circle was never the same. Around that same time, LaToya Jackson suddenly claimed that Michael had written checks to families of young boys between the ages of 9 and 13. The statement sent shockwaves through the media, sparking the first round of allegations that would follow Michael for years. Later, LaToya retracted her claim, saying she'd been forced into it by her abusive ex-husband, Jack Gordon. But according to insiders, that wasn't just family drama, it was part of something much bigger. Allegedly, the entire situation was orchestrated behind the scenes by Jay-Z and Diddy, who had the connections, the influence, and the motive to turn Michael's world upside down. And the timing? It wasn't random at all. Remember when Jaguar Wright came out and said that Diddy might be horrible, but Jay-Z was even worse? That claim is starting to sound less like Aramore and more like a warning, because when you really think about it, how is it that the two biggest solo stars of the music world, Prince and Michael Jackson, were constantly facing allegations, while Jay-Z and Diddy seemed untouchable? Even stranger, the public narrative painted them as moguls, who only wanted to lift up their fellow black artists. But according to the whispers and insider accounts, the real story might have been far darker, like the cards were stacked from the start, and the biggest threats to the industry were being systematically taken down while the orchestrators stayed clean.
I was at home in New York. I was at my house in New York. You know, another day, another morning, and I get a call. Headed to the hospital.
And you headed to the airport?
Not at that very moment. I didn't know the severity of it. No one knew. I can't remember exactly who I wound up calling back to see how things were going, and that's when they told me he had passed.
He had passed.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then Michael Jackson went public and he didn't hold back. He called out Tommy Mottola, the CEO of Sony Records at the time, accusing him of racism and unethical behavior, claiming Mottola was spreading conspiracies about him and other black artists for profit. Talk about, all I want to say is that they don't really care about us. Sound familiar? It should, because the pattern looks eerily similar to how Jay-Z allegedly hyped up Jaguar Wright, then dropped her when things got uncomfortable, or how Diddy was rumored to spread stories about Biggie and other artists whenever they tried to break free. Not long after Michael spoke out, he revealed that Sony was furious with him for wanting out of the label. Even though he owned 50% of Sony's publishing catalog, they wanted him to bend to their rules, and they were enraged that he refused to stay silent about their intimidation tactics. And according to insiders, this is where Jay-Z and Diddy allegedly began tightening their grip, working behind the scenes to isolate Michael and control the narrative around him.
Believe it may have been murdered. Do you still think that?
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why are you so
I would
sure?
never, ever think differently. Because first of all, Michael told me that they were going to murder him. He was afraid. He was afraid
who
for
was
his
going
life.
to murder him?
The people that were involved in his life, the people that were controlling him. This book, Starting Over, is about my life. And it's about Michael's life. It's the parallel between the two of our lives. We share that same life where people come into your life, wiggle their way in, control you, manipulate, control your funds, your finances, everything that you have, and you must do what they tell you to do. And that's what Michael was going through. And he knew that everything that was happening to him was not kosher, it wasn't right, and it disturbed him greatly. And he kept saying it over and over and over again. Yes, Dr. Murray was the fall guy, but it's more to it than just that. He named names. He told me people. He told me to be careful of this one and that one. And in the beginning, I didn't, it's not that I didn't believe him.
Who were the people that he was saying?
People that surrounded themselves around him, people that worked with him, people that were with him the last days.
Any specific names?
Michael wasn't capable of doing these shows that he was supposed to do. Michael only agreed to do 10, and it's because they had him on such a tight...
We're talking about a man who couldn't even go shopping without turning the place into a riot. Michael literally had to simulate a shopping experience just to feel what it was like to be invisible. So yeah, being followed wasn't unusual for him. But imagine how terrifying it must have been to constantly warn his family that someone was tracking his every move. And in the end, everything still came back to the catalog. Michael even told LaToya that he had developed a love-hate relationship with it. The people who stood to benefit the most? Diddy's Bad Boy Records and Jay-Z's Rockefeller Records, both founded around the same time. Those disturbing rumors about Michael being a PDF began circulating. Now, if you think that was just a coincidence, wait until you hear this next part. Remember when I mentioned that Jay-Z was allegedly promised something in return for spreading this conspiracy and manipulating the media? Well, look at what lines up. Michael Jackson passed on June 25, 2009, and just 5 days later, Jay-Z's Roc Nation announced a major distribution deal with Sony Records, the same company Michael had been battling for years. That's very suspicious. If this is how they allegedly operated with powerful black artists, imagine how deep these schemes might run. LaToya even claimed that after she was forced to lie about her brother, Michael confided in her that certain people had infiltrated his circle with the intention to unalive him, and she's not the only one who believes it. Paris Jackson has said she does too. In her book, LaToya shared that Paris told her the last time she saw her father. He was crying, saying he was freezing and begging for fire. She also said the phones were cut off and the house was left in darkness. The people allegedly responsible? Conrad Murray and Fahim Muhammad, the very same names tied to that suspicious night. To this day, Paris has said she hopes she'll get answers about who really took her father from her so soon. And when every single member of Michael's family keeps saying something felt off, it's hard to believe this was just coincidence. Looking at all the facts surrounding the King of Pop's passing, it's clear something went seriously wrong, and that Conrad Murray may have been just the fall guy in a much bigger operation. And there you have it. Janet Jackson pulling back the curtain on what could be one of the biggest conspiracies in music history. Jay-Z, Diddy, the media, and a network of powerful insiders allegedly working behind the scenes to isolate Michael, control his image, and manipulate the people closest to him. Whether you believe it or not, the pieces line up in a way that makes you stop and think. Michael Jackson may have left this world, but the questions about how and why are far from over. If Janet, LaToya, and Paris are speaking out now, you can bet the truth is still coming, and when it does, it might blow the roof off everything we thought we knew. The King of Pop deserves answers, and the world deserves the truth.